I'm Kristen Powell, and welcome to Unity of Walnut Creek service.
And welcome to our home. I'm Brenly Rada.
So tomorrow is Memorial Day, and we want to honor all those who have served in our military and lost their lives, as well as the countless healthcare workers who have lost their lives in our recent pandemic. So I want to invite you just into a moment of reflection and maybe to just hold this very simple blessing in mind with us. We honor and bless these loved ones, these dear souls who have given of their lives in service. And we also honor and bless the loved ones that they have who have lost somebody. And we hold all of them in this place of reverence, of honor, of thanksgiving for their service. And so it is. Amen.
And that's a perfect segue into our opening song. So let's go over to the home of our music directors, Lisa and Tyler's, to sing along with Peace Like a River.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Great to see you. And please join us. Tyler's going to start us off with an old classic, Peace Like a River.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul, in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain in my soul. In my soul. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain. I got love like a mountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain in my soul. In my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul.
Thank you, Lisa and Tyler, for sharing your music and your home with us today. Unity is a positive path for spiritual living. Our vision for the world is we envision a spiritually awakened world where all life thrives in conscious oneness. Our mission is who we've come here to be. Let's say this together. We are a loving, inclusive community, expanding and living our divinity in sacred service for all. Our core values are love, connection, service, and wisdom. If you are with us for the first time today, welcome. You are invited to fill out a connection card. Connection cards are available to everyone on the Watch Live page. You may submit a prayer request and our prayer team will pray with you throughout the week. You may also share feedback or request information.
So all of our classes, as you I think well know now, are online, also accessible, many of them by phone. So that's another way that you can connect with us. And we have one particular class we want to highlight again this week, and that's Kaleo and Elise Ching's The Divine Radiance of Qigong is the title. Qigong, if you don't know, is a Taoist shamanic practice, and it's based in Chinese medicine. And Kaleo and Elise tell us that these are some of the things that you'll gain from this class. You'll learn acupressure points that enhance your immune system. That sounds very timely. You'll learn techniques to release toxic energy and cultivate and radiate healing energy. And meditations to connect deeply with nature and the divine. So these classes are on Saturday morning. There's 2 more sessions available, and they're at 9:30 a.m. So this Saturday, May 30th, and the following Saturday, June 6th. And we invite you to do that to increase the divine radiance within you.
Nice. So we are making steady progress on building the labyrinth. Many of you have requested information on how to buy and bless bricks, so thank you for asking. If you would like to buy and bless a brick, you may do so at a self-service station on the Unity patio, or send us the blessing and we'll write it for you. And you'd send that to office@unityofwalnutcreek.org. Your blessing will be placed under the brick. So the labyrinth is literally being built on all of our blessings. Make your donation online through PayPal or the Give app, or you can leave a check in the secure office mail slot. Please clearly memo any donations for the labyrinth. This brick blessing it will close next Sunday, May 31st. We thank you all for your gifts and participation in this exciting project. Zoom, the app that we use for all online classes and meetings, has released a new version. By May 30th, all users of Zoom must upgrade their app. If you haven't done that already, please go to the website right after the service and click the link to Zoom's Download Center. All passwords will be required to join all of our meetings. Find new meeting IDs and passwords for all classes that were scheduled in March. Most of our other classes already have passwords, and so no changes were made. And now we have a special announcement from Tyler and Lisa.
That's one of our favorite songs from Daniel Nahmad, and guess what? He is going to be offering us a concert next Sunday. So you know, Daniel Nahmad has done so many songs that we love, including My Soul is Welcome Here and One Power. And then next week we're going to get to see him. Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's a special offering from Daniel. He's going to contribute to our music next Sunday, the 31st. For the services, but also that night, 7 p.m., we get to see him live just for us, although he's offering it to all of his fans and everyone all over the world. But he's doing this concert because of Unity of Walnut Creek, so we're really honored. And it's free. You just need to find the meeting link for Zoom on the Unity website and mark your calendars for the 31st at 7 p.m. We are asking for a love offering if you can, but it's free to watch the Zoom and share Daniel's wonderful music. So we want to make sure you're there Sunday the 31st at 7.
One more song.
Here's Daniel again.
Well, thanks so much to Lisa and Tyler, and so excited about Daniel coming to be with us next Sunday. So coming via video. So, and I know Tyler and Lisa were saying it's free, and we also really want to support our musicians who are out of work really now, and so graciously offering these concerts. So, of course, there will be plenty of opportunity to support them through your generous love offering. So, thanks for tuning in or planning to tune in next Sunday for that concert. Today, after the service, as always, we'll have at about 12:45 our virtual patio conversation. So you can tune in, see your friends, say hello, and you can also pray with a prayer chaplain during that time if you'd like. If you'd like more information about what's going on, please remember to keep going to our website where everything is updated and held right there, and all the information that you need to log on to any of our events is there as well. And if you want to stay informed through our weekly e-news, just fill out a connection card on the Watch Live page.
All right, so now as we prepare for our time of meditation, let's ground with our statement of faith. Let's take a deep breath together, settling into our hearts. One more deep breath. Please join me. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God.
So as we prepare for our time of meditation today, I have a reading in honor of Memorial Day. And also from this reading, we'll go right into a song that was written by Lisa Snorden Phelps and performed by Lisa. And then from there into our guided meditation with silence. So here's the reading to begin our time of meditation together. The word is honor. On Memorial Day, we honor all those who gave their lives in service to our country by serving in the military. During this pandemic, we also remember the countless healthcare workers who have given their lives in service to the greater good. So I invite you to let the rest of this prayer, this reading, be the words of your own heart. I hold these devoted souls in my heart with gratitude for their contributions to my health and my safety. I remember them with respect, and I give thanks for those who continue to work in healthcare, in the fields, in the grocery stores, and by providing other essential services. I pause to reflect on the bravery and the faith it takes to serve in these ways. These souls and their families are wrapped in divine love and comfort. And for those laid to rest and those continuing on, I now imagine the peace of spirit washing over them. And so it is.
Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Fill me up. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Fill me up with peace. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Fill me up. Fill me up. Fill me up.
We rest in the deep peace of the divine. And as peace washes over our minds, any disturbing thoughts or even busy thoughts are washed away. And even if it's just for these few moments, we open to the infinite peace that is available to us. Anytime we find ourselves in a moment of reactivity, we can just remember this, that peace washes over us. Just this breath and then the next. Peace soothes us from the inside out. So we can breathe a sigh of relief. As our minds rest in peace. And our hearts settle into that place of serenity. A reassurance and a knowing that all is well. And no matter what is happening in our lives and in our world, that there is this peace that we can return to. The breath, the moment, the song. Just the simple line of a song, peace washes over me. And anything that is other than peace now washes away. Dissolving in the great infinite living waters of spirit. Enfolded in peace now, resting in peace. Every heartbeat and every breath. The movement toward deeper peace. Let us enter that fully in the silence. And as we emerge from the silence, let us send a blessing out into the world for peace. Let peace rain down upon our brothers and sisters throughout the world. All people, all life. From the tiniest insect to the mightiest redwood tree, 8.8 billion people. Peace. These moments of peace strung together through conscious awareness and practice, just like this one. Just a few moments of dipping into this deep well of silence and quietude. We infill with peace. And as we move about our days, we let it wash through us and over us and extend it to all with whom we interact. It is with deep gratitude for this peace that centers us and assures us that we can be the presence of calm even in the midst of a storm. That we can shift in any given moment to peace. Peace does indeed begin with me. Let it be so. And so it is.
Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Fill me up with peace. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Peace wash over me. Fill me up with peace. Blessed peace.
Wow, that was really beautiful. I give big thanks to Lisa for that original song and to Sherry Dyer for the images that she continues to create for us for many of these videos. So I hope you were able to let the peace wash over you. So I'd like to move into a story that will feel maybe quite juxtaposed against peace, but it'll make sense after I tell you a little bit more. So this story is actually called The Angry Buddha, and it's told by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's actually an old Buddhist story. It's been around for a long time. So Miss Nguyen was a woman who practiced really regularly, 3 times a day, in fact. She would practice by chanting over and over the revered name of the Buddha. So Namo is the first word, and it means just sort of it's a reverent word, or kind of like a hallowed sense of that name. And then Amitabha, which is more like the infinite Buddha, the Buddha of light. And then Buddha is the last. So this was her practice, but the funny thing was, that she was a pretty angry person and kind of a mean person known in the town. And so one of the men in the town just decided he was going to point this out to her in a way that would make sense to her, that it would really get to her. So he waited. He knew when she practiced, and so he knew when she was in the midst of her practice. So there was Miss Nguyen, she would ring her bell, as many of us would, and light her candle as part of her ritual, and then she would begin to chant, Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha. And there was the man outside her home, Miss Nguyen, Miss Nguyen. And she heard him, and she was getting a little agitated, but she just decided, I'm going to ignore that. It's my practice time. So she just kept, Namo Amitabha Buddha. And he continued, Miss Nguyen, Miss Nguyen. And she was feeling some anger and agitation arising more. And she said, I must struggle against my anger. And so she kept, chanting a little bit more through clenched teeth, Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha. And there it came again, Miss Nguyen, Miss Nguyen. She couldn't stand it. She busted out of the room, and she opened up the gate, and she said, why do you keep calling at me? You know I'm in the midst of my practice. And she was very, very angry. And he said, how interesting. I've only been calling your name for 10 minutes, and you have been calling Amitabha Buddha for 10 years. Imagine how angry he is with you. So, anger is a part of our series theme. And today in this series that we are investigating transforming the 7 vices into virtue. Today's is to transform from anger into peace. But I want to share a little bit about the origins of the 7 deadly sins, which is what this series is based on. So Evagrius Ponticus is who it's been traced back to, and he was one of the monks and nuns among that band of desert mothers and fathers who lived in the Egyptian desert as ascetics and brought forth some wisdom. And actually the church then took on the 7 deadly sins. It didn't really originate with him, though, because he drew those 7 deadly sins from pagan texts. So we don't know how old it really is, but he's often the one who's credited with it. And then over the years, it's been tweaked a little bit here and there. Somebody along the way added the corresponding virtues. And so in a way, that's what we're working with, is the basic vices or deadly sins with the virtues. And the reason why they were called deadly is because they were thought to be so much taking us off course that they could actually kill the spirit or maim the spirit within us. So as we unpack these together, we look at, we all in our humanness are going to practice some of these vices, and for most of us we'll see the value in transforming them. And so that's our journey. Peace to anger, rather anger to peace is where we want to head today. So anger has a really important purpose. Harriet Lerner, a long time ago, wrote the book, The Dance of Anger. Some of you may have read that before. And she talks about how anger can motivate us to say no to the ways that others want to define us and say yes to the inner self, to the authentic inner self within us. So what's hard about anger, though, is for a lot of us, we've been given these messages, either by society or by our own families, that it's not an okay emotion, right? It's not okay to have anger. And so it's not appropriate, or it's certainly not ladylike, it's not very kind. So then what do we do when we have this natural human emotion? What to do with it? And that's really what we're going to explore a little bit, because a lot of times what happens then is when people are taught that it's not okay to have it and yet you have it, they tend to push it down and try to suppress it in some way. And we know what that's like. I always love that metaphor of the beach ball being pushed down in the water. Eventually it's going to pop up. And so it's going to roll off your fingers in the water and it's going to pop up. And it's kind of the same thing with anger. It's, if we keep suppressing it, it's one of the things that happens with depression. It's often considered a way of pushing our anger inward. And so obviously an explosion of anger is the outer, but the inner can be a sense of depression. So if we suppress that, that's not going to be healthy for anyone either. And if we let it go, like the beach ball that just flies up at any given time, then we could make quite a mess, right? We could have a big explosion of anger and make a mess of our relationships. Well, the latter is what I had experienced a few times before I started to learn a little bit better of how to navigate. And I was in a former relationship when this happened a couple times that, I got really angry and shared that verbally in a way that later I wished I would have said it differently, or it wouldn't have come out quite like that. And my partner at the time actually gave me some really simple and sage advice. She said, couldn't you just back it up and notice what's going on inside of you? Certainly you have some markers happening that are telling you that anger is coming up or that anger is present. And do the conventional, count to 10. And it was just like, that simple sage advice was like revolutionary for me. And it wasn't easy, but I started to really work with it. And then I noticed, I was really surprised, I would notice things like my breath became more shallow, or my gut felt tight, or I even could feel heat rising through my body. And so noticing those sensations, I could see that there was something building there, and I would count to 10. And then, it really shifted for me how then I would manage anger and express anger in a way that was much more conducive to the well-being of a relationship and everybody involved. And so it was really helpful to me. And maybe, I don't know about you, but have you ever said something and then you wished you could just take it back immediately? And it's hard to do. It's actually harder to take it back in a way than it is to manage our anger from the inside. Groucho Marx really said it best when he said, "Speak when you are angry and you will give the best speech that you will ever regret." Boy, if that isn't the truth, as my father would say. And so there was hope for me in those moments, and I think there's hope for all of us if we tend to have a short fuse at times when we get pushed, especially by those typically closest to us. So if you tend to repress your anger, even those small irritations and annoyances can and will likely add up at some point, and they will either implode or explode. And so that's usually what most of us want to avoid. We can drop those old tapes that says anger equals bad and begin to notice and have generosity and compassion for ourselves and each other when we recognize that anger is a normal human emotion. It's part of the spectrum of our emotions. And so making peace with that, accepting that, not making anger bad, just becoming more skillful in how we work with it. That's the key. So one of the things that Harriet Lerner also says is that it's not so much that anger needs to be projected inwards and outwards, but that the fire can be used for good. She didn't say that part, I said that part. But what she said is that the important issue is whether we use our anger, or you can use your anger, as an incentive for greater self-clarity, to achieve greater self-clarity. That's the key, to allow anger, because it points us in the right direction. It calls us somewhere. And self-clarity is one of those places where we can go if we follow that pointer. So anger is a call to self-clarity. If we could even just begin to frame it that way, when it arises then, when it's present, we can go, there it is, pointing me to something, some revelation, some greater level of self-knowledge. And when we use its fire in this way, it can lead us like a warm campfire gathering, instead of an out-of-control fire that's going to cause untold damage. It's then just sort of a gathering place to go, oh, okay, I'm going to come closer to the flames. I'm going to move closer to those flames and allow them to warm me, to clarify for me, to give me some great gift like the fire does when we gather around it. So how we engage then in this incentive to achieve greater self-clarity can contribute so much to our relationships and how we interact then in our relationships, especially when anger is present. Anger can point us to needs that we didn't realize we had. And as we become clearer and clearer with our inner processes, I don't know about you, but what I have found that those moments where that sense of unmet need is present, if the more practice I get, the more I realize, oh, that need keeps coming around again and again. So it's one of those hot buttons, you know. It's maybe a need you didn't get met as a child, and so, or you develop some kind of core belief. So maybe there's a need for acknowledgement or a sense of significant contribution in some way. And so you begin to become aware of that. That's one of my areas, you know, where it gets pushed. And then I can be aware, okay, I'm being beckoned to the campfire. I'm being beckoned to see more clearly by the light of that fire of anger instead of getting in it and being owned by it, you know. So there are needs, and also it can also illuminate the values that are especially important to us. So by going through the inward journey, we can begin to see, this is something I really value, that I hold really near and dear to my heart. And so when I see in the world that, you know, children aren't being treated well or animals aren't being treated well, it just really gets my ire up, right? That's that kind of righteous anger for worldly issues. And that too has a place, of course. It can fuel our passion and our action. So it's really, I think, anger is really something that is like that. The fire of anger, that elemental idea, one of the four elements, that it really has something to offer us. But it's important that important for the health of our own well-being and those around us, our relationships, that we allow ourselves to work with anger instead of it having us, taking over. You know, when it takes over, it's that reptilian brain that is taking over, essentially. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So anger has a tendency to be defensive, you know, and there's more underneath that we can uncover over time. So the next time you feel angry, I want to really encourage you to ask yourself, what's happening inside of me? What's going on inside of me? And that allows us to buy a little bit of time, so we're not like reacting like a spark, you know, but we're allowing that fuse to move us eventually into peace, really. We burn away a little bit of that dross, and the truth arises for us. So Rick Hansen is a researcher. He's known for, one of his books is called The Buddha's Brain, actually, but he's done a lot of work around the brain and meditation and how we work with all these things. He actually has an article called Train Your Brain from Anger to Peace. And in it, he offers some really nice steps, sort of how-tos of how to work with this in a little bit more detail. One of the things he mentions, the first one that he mentions, is kind of a strategic retreat. This idea of creating a little spaciousness, of spacious withdrawal. And so we can establish some inner quiet for ourselves in whatever ways that feels natural for you. And then to bring the situation to mind. So whatever it is that you're feeling reactive to just bring it to mind, to be in this spacious awareness and meditation in the presence of the divine. And allowing yourself to just witness it and be with it. He said, until it's like a hurricane in a sake cup. I love that image, you know, because you think of a hurricane is so big and powerful in a little sake cup. And it becomes that contained, really. It can become that contained with this kind of witnessing, this kind of bringing in the presence of spirit. And when we're at that point, we're able to then, in this process of this spacious awareness, in this process of strategic retreat, we're able to create this spaciousness from that limbic, that reptilian brain that is reactive, that fight or flight kind of reaction. That anger is sort of that knee-jerk reaction, right? That fire that we spew back when we're hurt is where it comes from typically, or when we're in fear. And so instead, when we buy ourselves a little time, when we give ourselves a little spacious awareness, a little strategic retreat, counting to 10, it's so simple, but that really helped me. It was like that counting to 10, that's just enough time, really. A slow 10, 1001, 1002, moves us from that one brain, that reactive brain, into the frontal cortex, the more thoughtful part of us, the more human, skillful, thoughtful part of us. And that's where we can process in a way that begins to cool a little bit. It begins to become a little bit more peace comes in. It doesn't mean that fire is out. That's key, because I think for people who might have a short fuse, they think their passion's just going to be watered over. That's not true. That the passion is still there. We can still work with it. We can just work in a more skillful way. So letting us pause, let anger be. You know, this is letting anger be, allowing, giving space to it. Let it be, like the Beatles song, Let It Be. You know, Ronnie Ong happened to perform the song for us, Let It Be, and this seems like a good time to pause and just imagine you're letting it all be as you listen. So let's watch and listen to Ronnie perform Let It Be.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. 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 Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. 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 There will be an answer, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine on till tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. 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 Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. 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 There will be an answer, let it be.
Well, big thanks to Ronnie for sharing that beautiful song. It was really nice. It was really nice to travel into the living rooms of our friends from Unity, isn't it? It feels very intimate to me. And I just love that song. I feel really moved, actually, by that beautiful song. And it's so perfect for this kind of self-compassion and compassion to extend out into the world. You know, just let it be, and then we can work with it. But let it be initially. Just let it be held. Let it be observed. Let it be what it is, without judgment. And that kind of generosity that we can extend, like we talked about last week in our first week of this series. So I mentioned the first step that Rick Hansen suggests is this kind of spacious withdrawal or strategic retreat. And the second one is similar, but it's in like what happens during that time. So during that time, we drop our story through observation. And noticing our sensations, we begin to drop the story that we're telling, and we do that also by neutral noting, or labeling. You might have, if you've ever practiced insight meditation, you may have been familiar with this form of meditating. So there's a noticing of the sensation, but there's also, if you noticed anger is arising, we're in that witness state, right? So there's been a little bit of this kind of movement away, and again, it doesn't own us, it's not taking over, so we're just witnessing it. So when we just notice and note anger is arising, it feels so much more neutral, and we're not hooked in, you know? So it's not my anger, it's just anger is arising. And it creates a distance from the story, because you know that source of the anger is always our perceptions and our story that we're telling, right? Our thoughts. It's not so much the thing that happened, but it's all the reactivity to it. It's what we told ourselves. So the story begins to fall away a little bit, and again, that shift from one brain to the other, it starts to occur for us. So whatever it is that, you know, Rick says, I who have been mistreated, disrespected, and harmed begins to fall away, right? That idea of I who have somehow been, you know, the ego has been harmed in some way, that begins to fall away, because there's no real self to be injured. When we're sitting in the witness seat, there's not a sense of that I am the ego. That identification is beginning to fall away, because we're identifying more with the spirit within us. And so from that place, we can be much more gracious, we can be much more skillful. And from that place, we can experience more freedom and more compassion. It helps us also to not get sucked into self-judgment. You know, if there's an old tape that says anger is bad, and then therefore if I feel angry, it's not okay, we can begin to drop that. And so that begins to fall away when we're giving ourselves this kind of spaciousness, and noting the sensations, and just labeling or noting the anger itself as it arises. And once that cover of anger is taken off, you know, once the cover is blown off and we can look in, usually it's those very tender emotions that are more present, like hurt or fear. Anger is the defense, the shield, but once it's taken off, it's those softer emotions that then soften us. And so it allows us then, and it's easier, you know how it is in a relationship, if somebody, in any kind of relationship, if somebody tells you, I'm really angry at you, it's like, oh, okay, so we just sort of like lock down, batten down the hatches, get ready, right? Here it comes. But if they say, I'm feeling really fearful, I feel really hurt, doesn't your heart just sort of melt open and you're ready to listen? So it's a very different kind of tenderness is the best word I can think of, or softening place that really opens up the way for a different kind of connection. The last thing that Rick Hansen suggests is invoking our community. I really love this one, because a lot of times with anger, people feel alone in their anger, or feel kind of isolated in their anger, which sort of perpetuates it and exacerbates it more. And so if instead we can open up to the community and recognize, hey, my Unity friends, my fellow meditators, people on the path, they're all working to be more skillful with emotions such as anger. And they are all encouraging me and offering me their support on this journey. And so if we invoke our community, the support of our community, even in just a prayerful state or a knowing energetic state, that really can open up the pathway for us as well. A couple other examples that I love are when we're in traffic, that we can be in the divine flow. We can be the traffic for everybody around us, because we know there tends to be a lot of road rage out there. Maybe less now that there's less traffic and less, hurry to get somewhere. But as we pick up our lives, as we begin to reopen the country, there's going to be more traffic on the roads, and we can come back into that in the divine flow. We can be the divine flow, that place for people on the road to be the traffic for them, to be the more graceful, easy, patient driver on the road that makes way, that opens up that channel. I've heard Felicia McBarton, our ministerial assistant at Unity, often talk about that. She has a long commute to Unity, about 45 minutes each way, and she will talk about being the peaceful place for others, to be the way, be the traffic for them, that divine flow. Another thing that can kind of get people's ire up is certain relatives or maybe even friends or others that you interact frequently with. But if you think about, maybe you're about to go to a family gathering at some point, or be with some of the people that in some way, maybe even it's online, people that kind of get under your skin. He suggests spending an hour, that's a lot, but any designated time that you decide, and holding compassion for that individual. And then see how you feel. Then see how you respond. It'll be quite different, I can guarantee. So by taking this more inner and more curious approach to our anger, we really allow anger to be present without trying to do something with it, like immediately express it or stuff it down, but just to be present as it moves, and allow it some space. And then we have it. It doesn't have us. And we can use its power then for good. So if it is righteous anger, the sort of anger triggered at worldly ways, at things that we're learning about in the news, or that we see in our neighborhoods, or that we just feel like are a true injustice, we can use that anger for good in a very similar and kind of skillful way, but also through action, right? So allowing that to be channeled into our passions, and then we can actually decide, what kind of action do I want to take toward that cause? And then go do that, serve in that way. It's a beautiful way. It's a lot of the fire that is behind activism and activists on the front line that can use some of this peaceful cooling, right? And a lot of us that are on the spiritual path are really steeped in the sort of peaceful, more cool energy, but we could sometimes use a little bit more of that spark, a little bit more of that heat for our passions in the world. So there's that balancing act that we find. And really we can make great positive change with that. So as we begin to master anger, what we do move into is this beautiful quality of spirit that is peace, right? We begin to be the peace, to hold the peace, to embody that peace, that sense of calm and serenity, even in the midst of the hurricane around us. We're able to sort of bring the hurricane into the sake cup, so we can all then sort of discuss it in a way that it's just not wreaking havoc everywhere present. In peace, so when we are in peace, we are centered in spirit. There is that sense of just really being centered in the divine. And when we are at peace, even despite raging around us, we can be in that kind of place. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This story comes from the Bible in Daniel chapter 3. And the story is that King Nebuchadnezzar at the time had this enormous golden statue built. And he wanted everybody to bow down to the statue. And so he, invited all of his precepts and his counselors and all the people around the land, the governors and all the people that held position. He invited them all to come and see the great golden statue that had been built. And he said, when you hear the lyre and all the instrumentations, the drum and the string instruments, and when you hear all the orchestra of the sounds of the music, you are to bow down to the golden Buddha. I'm sorry, the golden statue, not the golden Buddha. That's another story for another era and another tradition. So everybody's to bow down when they hear this. And so all across the land, every language, all the nations and the languages, all the peoples are to do this. So for the most part, people obey it. But there are some astrologers that have the king's ear, some wise sages that are able to perceive what's going on throughout the lands. And they say, "O king, I don't know if you realize, but you have some folks who are working in the area of Babylon and as governor, or not governors, but they had a higher role in the government process. And these three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're not paying attention to this. When the music plays, they are not bowing down to the statue and worshiping in this way that you are suggesting we all do, demanding, commanding that we all do." And the king was in a rage, and he said, "Bring Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego to me, and I want to speak to them immediately." So as soon as they could, they brought these three. And the king said, "When you hear the music, you will bow down on your knees and worship the golden statue." And all the music played. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not kneel down. They did not bow down. They did not worship. And the king was filled with even greater rage. And to add to it, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, "We have no need to defend ourselves and the God that we worship." But the threat was, if the people all through the land did not do what the king had said, they would be thrown into the fiery furnace of blazing flames. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego well knew that this was the punishment. And still, they stood by this. And the king said, "You shall be thrown into the fiery flames." And he was so angry when they were saying, "Well, if our God comes to our defense and we survive, then you will know about our God. And if our God does not come to our defense, we still would not bow down to the statue." And now the king was just out of his mind with fury. And he called very quickly for the biggest men that he had, the strongest men that he had, to bind up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they had all of their clothing, their long robes and their turbans and their trousers. And still they were bound, and they were going to be thrown into the fire by these big men. And they were as calm as could be. They were centered in God and peace. And they were thrown, and then the king said, "Ratchet it up 7 times the heat." And so they ratcheted up 7 times the heat. It was so hot, and the king's command so urgent, that these big men that were throwing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fiery furnace were killed because it was so hot. And so the three, bound down, fell down into the flames. But it wasn't long before the king, sitting on his throne, noticed something very odd. The three, but not just three. Weren't there 3 men, he said? Now there's 4. And there's 4, and they're walking through the flames. They're completely unbound and untouched by the fire. He can't believe it. And the 4th among them appears like a god. And he gets close, and he looks in, and he says, we let them out. This almighty God that they follow is saved them, is with them. And so out comes Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and all the counselors and the precepts and the governors come close, and they can't believe what they see. Not a singe on any of their garments. No hair is singed. The 3, they don't even smell like fire. And the king, who has learned little about anger and ruling in a violent and fearful way, says, "Anybody who blasphemies the God that these 3 follow, who from now on we will follow, will be torn limb from limb, and their houses left in ruins." But still, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, untouched, end up being promoted in the province of Babylon. So this story, this very involved story, really shows us how when we are centered in spirit, when we are centered in that place of peace, when we become more skillful, we don't get burned anymore by the fire of anger. We can walk through it, it can be present, but we don't get burned by it. Somebody else's or our own fury cannot touch us anymore. It's there, it's present, we're not pushing it away, we become firewalkers. We're walking through it. And so it's that kind of transformation that is available to us as we allow anger to be that thing that helps us achieve self-clarity. And with that self-clarity, to land in that place of deep peace in us, centered in spirit, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so we are at peace, still passionately devoted to our values, like these three. So I want to invite you to own this with me as we traditionally close out together with an affirmation. Let's do that. That when this idea of peace comes, and it's when anger is calling us into it, then peace comes as a part of that. And as we allow the fire of anger to do its good work within us, we produce a true sense of peace. So together the affirmation is, I answer anger's call for self-clarity and I discover peace. Let's say that again together. I answer anger's call for self-clarity and I discover peace. And so it is. Bless you on this journey.
Thank you, Kristen. I love the idea of utilizing anger as a way for self-clarity. Yeah, thank you for that. So whether you have a joy or concern on your heart today, our prayer chaplains are available to provide prayer support during our virtual patio conversation after the service. You may also contact them by phone and email. Please complete a connection card on the Watch Live page or click on prayer requests at the bottom of the home page. Our prayer team will be praying with you throughout the week. Now let's open our hearts to the practice of giving. Our spiritual home thrives with your continued generosity. I invite you to prepare your gifts as we align with the universal law of circulation. As we give, we shall receive. In truth, there is no lack or limitation. Abundance is our true nature. In addition to sending checks through regular mail or direct deposit through your bank, there are 2 ways to give online. You may click on the Donate button on the Watch Live page or download the Give app. Remember that Give is spelled G-Y-V-E. I invite you to repeat our prosperity affirmation with me. Together, divine love, one with me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am joy-filled and grateful.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Talking about that peace. That's right. Set your spirit free, y'all.
If we wanna make a change, be the change we seek. If we get this thing called love, turn the other cheek, spin the world all upside down. Maybe then we'll see another way to be. If we're gonna have this dream, can win together now, but separately we lose. Given to the doubt and fear, we show that heaven's here with every word we say, with every move we make, with every breath we take. Shanti Omani, Pachi Shalom. Damai Kapayo Pawan, Salam Yaro.
Set your spirit free.
Shanti Omani, Pachi Shalom.
Talking about that peace.
Damai Kapayo
That's right.
Pawan,
Yeah.
Salam Yaro.
So I don't know about you, but I'm having a little chair dance over here. Love Faith Rivera. Thanks, big thanks to Faith for allowing us to use that video. And hopefully you got your dance on at home as well. So we give thanks for your generosity, for what continues to support us. I also want to acknowledge that we give thanks for also the generosity that we've received through our bank and through the payroll protection plan. We did get that award for the payroll protection plan, $41,000 to help us through this time. And also we're able to defer our mortgage for 3 months. So in addition to your generosity, we're right now in pretty good shape, and so we thank you for continuing to support us. It's so important, and we know that our principle is as we give, so we receive, as Brenly said a little bit earlier. So it is just a part of that flow. So thanks for participating in that flow. So let's bless our offerings, knowing that they are moving through the ethers toward our ministry, and then through our ministry out into the world. Together, we give thanks for the ever-increasing, constant flow of absolute good in our lives now. So it is.
So it is. So let's also bless our frontline workers. Frontline workers, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divine light within you.
And so our children have been giving us little flashbacks of different events that they've had through the years. And today we're going to get to see a couple of pictures from their ice skating party. I think that was earlier this winter. So so let's take a look at our cuties.
One mind, one love, one coming together. One heart, one mind, one love, coming together.
It's fun seeing a lot of our teachers and parents in that too. So families all together look like great fun. So we want to bless, of course, our children and our teachers today. They've been meeting on Zoom every Sunday at 10 a.m. And so we give thanks that Michelle has kept that going. And let's bless our children and teachers together. Children and teachers, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divine light within you. Now it's time for our prayer of protection. So I invite you to please join me with this weekly prayer of protection. And as we do so, again, let's keep all of our service military folks in mind, as well as all frontline workers in this pandemic, as well as all of us. So we might as well put all of us in as we say our prayer of protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. So it is.
So stick around until the end of the service. We have community member selfies you won't want to miss. And we want to see you too. So please send your silent waving videos to office@walnutcreek.org. unityof.org. Yes.
Unity of Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Office at unityofwalnutcreek.org. Yeah.
It didn't make it into my script.
It's okay.
And now our peace song.
You are the light and the love and the peace on earth right now.
So let your light shine and
Have fun and spread joy. Have a great week, everyone. Bless you.
I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. Gonna live in peace forevermore. I am living in peace evermore. 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 I'm gonna open my heart to love down by